Art of Sound with Scotty Baldwin. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. As was threatened last week, we have Scotty Baldwin on the episode with us. We were, I think, let's see, what was it, during the Patreon? It was during the Patreon episode. We were talking about Scotty, and I was like, let's get him on next week. And Kyle sends him a message right then during the Patreon episode. So we have him here. Scotty, welcome on the show, man. Thanks for coming back.
I'm here. I want to know, have you ever messed up the wording? I don't think I've ever heard you mess up your intro wording. That whole thing you say?
I've screwed it up a couple of times at least. Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Sometimes
I've definitely messed it up.
Sometimes I try to change it a little bit to add something relevant to whatever's happening, and that definitely throws me off track, and sometimes I just stumble through the rest of it.
How did that come to be?
It was a slow process of many different. When we were first starting, we would each do it and like come up with a little piece and then another piece, and then it just slowly like grew, and
we kept adding,
put all this stuff together.
We kept coming up with different ways to intro the show, and then sometimes off air we're discussing it. We're like, oh, we could refer to it this way, and then one day I took all the ideas and strung them all together, and I said it, and Kyle was like, hell yeah. I'm like, okay, that's the intro.
Well, folks, gotta let you know. So Scotty Baldwin was on with us on episode 110.
Yeah.
And you reached out.
Way back in ancient history.
You reached out to Russ, and I don't know, Russ had told me, like, hey, we're going to have this guy on. And,
it was quite a departure from what you had going at the time, right?
Yeah.
You just had Randall on. It was all about ancient Egypt, and
it was
truly back then.
Pure
right?
speculation and, off the cuff stuff. And
yeah.
What did you reach out to me on Twitter? Is that what happened?
It was something like that.
You sent me a message through Twitter, I think. Yeah.
And I forgot what it was about. I don't think I said like, hey, can I be on the show? But I was about something like that. And then somehow I made an interesting guess just because of the musical aspect that you guys, that people have grown to really appreciate and love the bumper music and sort of get into $50 Dynasty as a result of that. So it seemed fitting that you have music as a part of your interests on the podcast.
I went and listened to one of your, before you came on the show, I went and listened to one of the interviews you did with somebody. I don't remember what. Talking about your career with Prince and running front of house. And I was just like, wow, this is freaking cool. And I'll just say, since then, folks, me and Scotty, we've been hanging out.
They've been hanging out.
We've never met in person, but we have stayed in touch, and we've been talking a lot, sending each other messages.
How am I not in y'all's Telegram chat? What is the deal?
You're just not a sound guy.
I guess I'm not as cool.
You're not a sound guy, bro. You're not allowed.
You're the middle child in this triumvirate. I'm the old guy.
But we've gotten to know each other, and in my opinion, for two guys who've never met, two friends who've never met, we've gotten really close. I feel like I know you really well. And I was just like, man, I don't remember.
Well, that's
you said something to me, and I was just like, you know what? We need to get you on the show. We need to get you back on. So I'm glad to have you back on. And we don't know where we're going. We don't really.
And it doesn't matter. Like it's our podcast, and we love all the ancient mystery stuff. But I don't mind talking about other things. And part of our lives is the rock and roll, and you're definitely in that.
This guy has lived it.
Yeah,
he's been in the front of house.
Yeah.
Of rock and roll. For a long time.
It's when people look back and see and talk about how many shows they've gone to see, they'll say, oh, I saw U2 once, and I saw Taylor Swift once, and I saw, Van Halen when they came back with David Lee Roth. They'll bring it up.
Yeah.
And usually it's probably under 30 in people's lives. They've been to 30 or less shows.
Yeah.
Major shows. I mean, not bars. I've been in front of literally thousands of shows of all these top musicians and in that everyone knows. And I'm still just as curious in a sense as I ever have been about the industry and about all of it. I still have that sense of wonder about what makes people feel a certain way I think that's what keeps me relevant even in my mid 50s, is I still keep that sense of wonder about it. And that's what people, I think, have about your podcast, is that you guys are genuine. You can tell. I love the connection. I remember listening to you and hearing that you were homeschooled, and that intrigued me. And I was like, well, wait, how did they learned all this stuff at home, and how do they do it? And figuring your guys' personality out as we went along. And it's the laughter and it's the camaraderie between the brothers. And it's a genuine interest of, I would imagine, of your regular listener, that you get to know you guys. And I just was one that reached out, for every one of me, there's, hundreds or thousands of people that don't. And I just happen to reach out and have an area of interest that you guys have and share. And it's fun. It's fun to get to know people. And yeah, I mean, Kyle and I've spent a lot of time, and all this time I was in China, especially in the last year or so, we spent a lot of time on Telegraph, sending videos back and forth and just updating each other on what's been going on. And it's been fun.
So people who have been listening to the show for a long time will remember your episode. But for those who haven't gone all the way back and listened to those, or haven't caught up yet, tell us who you are and give us a bit of your background.
So when you go to a concert, there's someone mixing for the audience and someone mixing for the band. And the person that's mixing for the band, they're on stage. They're called the monitor engineer. I'm called the front of house engineer. It's an old term, but it's really the house engineer. I mix for the audience, and I've done it forever. I started my career as basically an Eddie Van Halen wannabe. I took guitar lessons, loved how Eddie played guitar, was inspired by that, but found I didn't have the musical aptitude. And this is in the early 90s. I didn't have the aptitude for playing as much as I did the technicality of it. Had a great voice, had a great mind for music and technicality, but just didn't really even want to be on stage. That wasn't my thing. And just, I grew disinterested in it. And it just so happens that Prince's drummer, being from Minneapolis and living there, Prince's drummer saw me working for another band. And he said, "Hey man, what do you know about drums?" And I said, "Oh, unfortunately nothing." And he said, "Perfect, you're hired." He said, I don't want to hire a drummer to set up my drums on Prince. I want you to learn how I want to do it. And I'm talking about Michael Bland, who was probably Prince's greatest drummer, and drummed for him throughout the 90s, and just kept and learned sound at the same time as I was setting up drums in town and around town and on tour with Prince. And I got really good. I had the right mentor to run sound early. And he taught me to be unafraid and to take chances and to do cool stuff and really try and be musical, but don't stick out too much. You're in support of an artistic endeavor. That's the phrase he said to me a long time ago. He said, "We're in technical support of an artistic endeavor. So don't try and be an artist. Support the artist, but don't outshine them." Right.
Yeah.
As it says in Taoism, the servant never outshines the master. Right. So, and I was into Taoism at the time, so it was really rang true for me. So I learned sound, and I got hired by a woman named Sheila E., who was an old drummer for Prince. And I went out on the road and got noticed right away by all these big R&B stars, and quickly found myself at the helm of running sound for Seal and for Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder. And it's just, for me, it blew up really fast, really quickly. I never had to work at a sound company or do anything like that. I was already mixing on big tours a few years into it. And then I decided that my resume was a little too slanted toward R&B. And I have a mentor of mine who became a mentor of mine, a guy by the name of Dave Hampton. And Dave was really instrumental in my career. Dave said, "Listen, Scotty, you have the technical and the musical, but the third triad, the third part of that is relational. And you need to master that. And you've been working in Black R&B music too much. And as a Black man," Dave told me, "you need to diversify. You need to get out of working for us." He said, you need to get out there. And so I really made a concentrated effort. And in the next year, the year 2003 for me, I switched gears totally. I did Madonna, Duran Duran, Roxy Music, and Donny Osmond. It doesn't get whiter than that, right? That is for Donny Osmond, who's a great guy. That was I totally went the other way to find the balance. And then I just sort of got back into mixing big pop stars, and I did Lady Gaga and Prince again, and a lot of Black Eyed Peas, and I'm missing a few really big ones there. But I was kind of had this nice career going, and around 2016, 2017, it kind of felt like I was bringing it home, not to retire, but it just felt like I wasn't the hot guy anymore in the industry. Almost like when you're on a flight and you hear that first ding, and you're like, oh, that's the one that's, and then you feel your ears pop.
Getting ready to
I
land.
kind of felt like that's what was starting to happen. And no lights, no sirens, no foam the runway. It was going to be a nice, easy landing, and I would just sort of keep mixing as long as I could. And then a guy named Lihom Wang, W-A-N-G, Lihom, cold emailed me. He found an interview I did after Prince died. He listened to it and he said, "This is the guy who understands it. This is the guy who gets it. I'd love to work with him." And he brought me over to China. He's an American guy and American Taiwanese guy. And he brought me on a 3-year tour of China. And through that, all the biggest artists in Taiwan and China heard my work and came to the shows and said, they didn't say like, "Oh, it'd be nice to get a guy like that." They said, we want
that guy. Yeah.
We want that guy.
Awesome, dude.
And so I've been knocking down, doing really well in my career and knocking them down one at a time, the biggest stars. And it's funny, if I mentioned to you guys, if I said Lihom Wang, JJ Lin, Ame, David Tao, Jolin Tai, you recognize none of those. No. And they're all bigger than Beyonce.
Yeah.
Because think of the market.
They got 1 billion fans. Yeah.
They got 1 billion fans.
Yeah.
And so I've really found a niche. The ding happened again, and then we started getting air again. And now I've been just like flying on that ever since COVID interrupted that. But I did come back and right away got hot again. And I've been over in Taiwan and China specifically for the last couple years since COVID.
I have to say, Scotty sent me videos when you were over there working, like on Telegram. He would send me videos, and in some cases, I guess some of the videos you sent me were long. Like, I don't know how you recorded like 6 or 7 minute videos, but like he's in the sound room in the practice, like for the practice sessions, rehearsals leading up to these shows, and like he's got his board in there and he's explaining all the stuff that he's doing on this board. This guy, folks, he's a scientist. I mean, you are the way you go about dealing with this. I mean, in massive shows, you have like 114 tracks. He learns every single song. He takes extensive notes and everything. He's programming the board to the entire show for like what, a week? Some cases,
at least that. Yeah,
at least
some
a
cases
week.
It has to be faster, and most often it's 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah,
I mean, hundreds of tracks.
Yeah, it's a lot
running
of cues.
all at once.
What it is it's taking but as complex as it can be, it really still is. I've never lost sight of the fact that it's very simple, and I always think about the audience member and what they want to hear, and how I would want to hear it if I were a fan of that material. So a lot of times we can get lost in, I don't know, the architecture of being ever forward. We lose track and lose contact with. Well, can I tell you? Here's a secret that I don't tell many people.
Tell us the secrets. That's what this podcast is all about.
Before every show in these stadiums, whether they're in the U.S. or in China, before every show, as the crowd comes in, before the crowd comes in during sound check, I turn around and I find like the farthest seat I can from me. I just look at it. It's like might be section, 321. And I look at the top row and I look at that seat and I just go, okay, that's the seat I'm going to look at tonight. And then after sound check, we go get some dinner and and then prepare for the show. And then I come back out to front of house and music's coming. People are filing in. People are all excited. You know how it is before a concert.
Yeah.
And before the show happens, when the lights are still up, I turn around and I find that person in that seat. I look at that person and either I say it out loud, which is weird, but I do, or I think it and I just say, tonight, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Maybe it's the first time you've seen Jolene play and you're the guest of your girlfriend and she loves Jolene. So she brought you, maybe you're the one who loves Jolene and you brought 3 friends. Whatever it is, I'm working for that person tonight. I'm not working for the money specifically. I'm not, because money comes and goes. I'm not working for the glory of it because I'm part of a background group that never really typically gets noticed. I'm working for that person. That's the person. And I never say I'm working for an artist. I always say with. I think that's an important mindset to have. I don't work for artists. I never worked for Prince. I worked with him. Right? Because we work in concert together.
Yeah.
But that person, I work for that audience member. And all I have to do is times that by 50,000 or 60 or 70,000 and just know that I'm there for that person's enjoyment. And I think that's what's kept me connected. It's kept some gravity to my hubris and ego, which in the doing what I do, front of house engineers quite often get quite large egos. And I've never suffered that. It's maybe not in it. I'm always there. The most important day of my career is the one that I'm in right now. The most important artist is that artist, and the most important audience member is that one that I pick out. And it's sort of kept me grounded, especially when I'm traveling the world and haven't seen my family in months. I at least know I'm there for somebody in every city. And yeah, I mean, I study it like a tactician, like somebody would study for sports. So like there's a, third and long receiver coach on a team. Like that's all they do.
Yeah.
Is there a coach for third, or I'm a long snapper on a team, a football team or something. I'm not even a football guy, but like you have
no idea what you're talking about.
You have one job to do, right?
Yeah. Somebody has to kick the ball, right? That one time.
And so, but I study it, and I study the material. I always know it as well as the band. And I can say, okay, what are we doing on bars 72 to 76?
That's
what are we doing that thing? And you have to know it as well as the band. And then I can listen for things. And I seem to have a different resolution. I seem to have the capaciousness. I have a capacity to have a resolution of listening and intently, and then getting and hearing things that other people not necessarily don't hear, but aren't listening for. And I can pick them up. And then I can know what to do. And that's only part of it. And having a good mix for the audience is only a part of it. A big part of it is working with band members and artists and stars, and knowing what can make that guitar player play. I need them to play, which is appropriate for the song at that time and what they should be playing. And you have to sometimes serve up shit sandwiches and say like, hey, you're doing great on this part. Can you da-da-da? And remember where it stops right there? I'm putting an echo on you. So, but it's going to be great, right? So the compliment, the bad news, the compliment, right?
Yeah. Compliment sandwich. Yeah.
A compliment sandwich. I always call it. Yeah. So it's, maybe it says something about me that I say shit sandwich.
Oh, shit sandwich is when you talk shit and then you compliment them and then talk shit.
Oh, okay. I've had it wrong for years. Then.
The compliment sandwich is the other way around.
So it's knowing how to work with artists. That's the big deal. I can mix in my sleep. It's quite easy for me to reformulate music and get the band to do, with the artist's blessing, of course, get the band to do what I need them to do to make things super tight and sound great and have a great show for the audience. That's easy. The trick of it is having a good attitude about it, keeping a good positive energy. I don't get too ethereal, but having a good energy out there in front of house and being the only American on the entire tour. And it takes, I think it's like 211 people that put this last concert, this show I've done for 3 months, and I'm going back to do for 4 months in China next year. It takes over 200 people to put the show up. And I'm the only American. So I'm the only guy there, and out at front of house, people are pointing at me and wanting to take pictures, right? It's very strange, right? Because I'm like the one of these kids is not like the other, right? Yeah. On Sesame Street or whatever, like that I'm that guy, and it's okay because I always wave and take pictures and do that because I think it's the experience. I feel fortunate. I feel very fortunate to do something that I don't even consider work at all. And I've done it for 35 years. I don't feel like I've ever worked, and I just keep getting work. So I kind of keep doing it. It's not like I chose it. I didn't choose to be an engineer. I didn't want to be. I was a sort of a failed musician, turned into an engineer, and then just kept getting the calls. Like you guys know what imposter syndrome is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We all have a thing like deep inside us that we're going to get called out at some point for not being this thing that we are. And I suffer that as much as anybody, even though I have like a really impressive resume and I'm really proud of that. It's still about today. It's still about this podcast. It's still about, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But I do suffer that sometimes. I think anybody could mix like that. Anybody can do this, but they can't put it all together. It's like being musical, being technical, knowing that the biggest challenge for me is not the mixing of songs. It's the interstitials between the songs. How am I going to get to from a heavy rock sort of tune to a pop song? Was that choice right by the artist? Do I have enough leeway to say, hey, this is in C and then we're going into B flat. You're sort of reverse modulating. That's not really working. Have you tried something else there? Fortunately, I've been in a string of artists in Taiwan and China, in Asia, I should say, that really have their poop in a group. Like they know exactly what they're doing. Their shows are paced out. Everything is, I don't even have suggestions for the show. And sometimes the artists say, hey, how's it sounding? Like, do you have any suggestions? I go, no. Like that's how good the shows are.
Wow.
They're all like Taylor Swift caliber, whatever this tour that she just did that was so big. That they're all that kind of caliber shows. They're all 300 feet wide and 100 feet tall. They're massive stadium shows with, 12 or 15, or I think Jolene's got like 16 elevators with full video, 8K video everywhere. I mean, it's
the other
stunning.
thing. The stage stuff. I mean, I don't know what was you sent me.
I sent a video of the whole stage setup, right?
Yeah, and the guys are like pushing the stairways around it. Like they have this whole team out there practicing. They had everything taped out. Here's where this prop's going to move at this time, and they're rolling the stuff around. We got to get this giant stairway all the way over to this position in like a certain number of seconds.
Yeah.
The guys are practicing doing it up there.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the coolest thing. And I have to say, I appreciate it so much that you just send me these little like tutorial videos. Like here's how I mix this. Like here's what I'm doing right now. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
And it's never, I'll never be accused. That almost sounds like I could be like breaking my arm off to pat myself on the back with it. I'm not like that at all.
No.
I've never really suffered that. It's always about like, I think you'll be interested in this process. And I think people really, if they knew how hard, especially the artists work, you think, oh man, it's easy. Somebody cooks their food, they dress them, they do all this stuff. It is really hard work. The level of work ethic I've seen, especially in Asia, and we talked about this at some point in the past, where just when I thought I'd seen the best drummers in the world in the U.S., basically like the U.S., the U.K., Europe, right? You've seen that's the pool of Western musicians. Like there aren't a ton of amazing musicians coming out of Australia. So if you're going to say like it's the US, the UK and Europe, that's where the best musicians in the world are. They're not. I'm here to tell you, I did like 28 years or 30 years of believing that I've seen the best musicians. And when I went over to Asia and started seeing that, I would ask all these band members, they would all have iPad Pros and they were all sight reading. The background singers, all of them read, almost all of them graduated from Berkeley, all of them know theory, all of them can look at each other and go, 3, you're on the 3, I'll take this major 7. Like they just go 7, 3, okay. And then they can do it on the first take, and everything is, it's the level of execution over there is the highest I've ever seen. I'm very, very at home in that setting, and I work well within a team setting as well. And everything in Asia is about teams. It's teams of people. So I feel, even though I'm kind of like the hired hot gun on these tours, I'm like the big pickup for this artist. Like, hey, I got Scotty Baldwin mixing me. I sort of look at that as just this other person. I don't think about it as me. I just always want to do the work, and I work well within teams. And I always have this notebook and this pen out, no matter what. Even if the meeting is in Mandarin, I still put my notebook out and I'll still have my pen out all the time, just in case they say something or the translator will say, oh, they said this. And I go, cool. And I take notes and I take it very seriously. And it's all kind of earned. I've earned it all.
Have you had to do, serious mixes for music that you just actually don't like at all? How is that?
Yeah, there have been a couple tours that I just didn't, I'll put it this way. I didn't connect with the music whatsoever, but I knew what would make it help it connect to the fans.
Okay.
that were trying to be influenced. So I took it just as seriously as I never like go, whatever. Yeah, I'm just going to cruise on these next 6 weeks. I'm going to take it easy. I still took it really seriously, and I still look at an audience member.
But did that make it more like work? This is just an interesting idea to me. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, it was actually work at that point.
Yeah.
I still hit all my marks.
Yeah, sure.
But it was more, I didn't dance around behind the board like I'm kind of known to do. I mean, I'm kind of trying to get into it. And because as the show goes, as I go, so goes the show. If I'm just sitting around, that's why I think it's funny in Asia, especially Jolene's show is very powerful, very big. Would be looked at as like Beyonce or Katy Perry or Madonna. Like she's huge. She's the queen of Chinese pop. I look around and I think there's either like 29 or 30 or 31 people at front of house. Usually you see like 4 or 6. We have 31 people, this giant black tent. We're all in there. There's lasers. There's glow sticks. There's the drone driver. There's a couple of them. There's a sound. There's motion control. There's show directors. There's all sorts of people. It's like a little city out there. And in the middle of this, a great song with a great feel, I turn around, I'm moving, I turn around, and nobody's moving.
Dancing.
Nobody's dancing. It's incredible. Like everyone's just kind of working. And so I'm looked at first, I thought that would become a cancer of sorts, right? Oh, he's trying to, but we're hidden. We're really hidden. We're really in this cave. So I can feel free to, everything is forward. And so I kind of let it guide me, let the music guide me a little bit and get into it and throw some echoes on when I want to and push things a little bit one night and get aggressive here or there and try and hit my marks, but then always be pushing it. And the biggest thing that was the biggest challenge for me between the West and Asia was the audience reaction at the end of a song. It's very large and then it stops. And it is dead silent in a stadium. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it would go, and then if you couldn't find your friend, the time to wait is between songs.
Yeah.
Right after the crowd gets done, you could go, Roger, we're here. Because it's completely dead in the entire stadium. And
That's
so
wild.
With Lee Hom being an American Taiwanese guy, Lee Hom, I said, hey man, like, do you want me to help with this somehow? Are there ways that I can? He was like, yeah, anything you could do. So there's the end of one song that has a big bam, bam at the end, right?
Yeah.
And I put like a 10-second reverb on the drums that they hit and on his voice. And he goes down an elevator and the 2 big light flashes. And I thought, well, I'll just give like a 10-second verb. I just pushed this reverb to get us all the way to when the interstitial video started. And things like that, ways of handshaking the material to get it to kind of glue together without having these big, I've gotten used to it now, but it is the strangest thing. It's dead silent. So in the West, we go, woo, we live in the world of woo, like, woo, like and no one does that over there. There's no like woohoo over there.
You got to start it.
And they have to sit. And in China, all the fans have to sit. You can't stand at a concert.
So they're all sitting.
So the artists all give every one of the 80,000 people, they give them light sticks.
Yeah. When
they come in, they pull the little tab on the battery, and then it flashes in sections to the music, and people shake that light stick, and it's a genius move by the artists. They want to get the fans involved in some way physically. They have very stringent things over there. In China, you have to.
So no mosh pits.
Excuse me.
No
mosh pits, and they have to go over your set list. Your set list has to be approved by the Ministry of Culture, and the requirements for doing the concert are very, very different. And it's a challenge because it's another hoop and another thing you got to dodge and hoop. And so lyrical content is important. And maybe you're an artist that pushes the LGBTQIA plus community, and that's a big part of your persona. But when you go somewhere that is not looked at as part of the community, so it's a very careful and crafted thing that we don't in the West have to think about at all. And we have the freedom and the responsibility, but freedom to do what we want. Well, there's much more, movement as far as how to get things done over there. And that's why I'm very good in meetings. I keep to myself. I understand my place, my role, and I've really worked myself well into the fabric of the team way and the way that we do it in. See, that's even funny that I say we, the way we do it in Taiwan and in China. It's a specific way, and I don't think that that's where when I suffer on the rare occasions I suffer that inferiority, the what is it called again? Imposter syndrome. That like I go, oh no, I don't know of any other engineers that could do this. You know, I know engineers that are better than me. I've heard some engineers that are just fabulous engineers that just have a thing. They just have the right touch, and I'm there. But I've met some really stunning. You know, hopefully they weren't just one-off mixes that I just went, oh my God, this is perfect. This is perfect. Everything about this is perfect. And I always make sure whether they know who I am or not, I go up after it's like, man, that was the best, you know, sound I've ever heard. Yeah. There's a guy, I finished a Prince show once in 2002 in London. I was talking to the sound company owner, was from America, and he was over, and my system engineer started tearing down the desk, and I was just talking with the sound company owner and his with one of the other guys from the sound company. And a guy came up to me, this Brit, and he said, oh, right, excuse me, young man. And I said, yeah, you mix the show? And I was like, yeah. And he said, what's your name? And I said, my name is Scotty, you know, and, yeah, all right. Yes, my name is Hugh. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. He said, I've been to a lot of shows. You know, that was the best sound I've ever heard. And I know a little thing or two about sound. And then I said, oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. You know, yeah. And then as he was walking away, the sound company guy stopped him and said, excuse me, is your name Hugh Padham? And he said, yes. And he was like, oh, nice to meet you. And I said, who is that? And he turned to me, this guy, Owen, turned to me. He said, in your career, you will never get a greater compliment than that. That's Hugh Padham. He's audio royalty.
Oh, wow.
And he just and we just saw that happen. So I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. Whatever.
Thanks, bro.
But because his compliment to me meant good or bad, his compliment meant the same to me as like somebody coming up the other aisle going, hey, the sound was great. I'm like, thank you. It's the same to me. I appreciate it, and also I'm good at, I've had to learn how to be good at taking criticism as well.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a part of it as well. Like it was too loud. Where were you? I was back here. Like, oh, okay. And then I have to think, well, was it? You know, I didn't feel like it was, but like try and be constructive about it when people are nice enough to get a hold of me and say, hey, I saw the show. It was this. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, I like to, you know, respond in kind and actually work toward a goal of making it better. And fortunately, I haven't had to do that in a long time. And in Asia, there's a high level of attention to detail over there. But they do also appreciate engineers. Like I have a name over there. I'm known in those circles as this really reputable guy who is like a high-priced insurance policy, right? That's who you want on your team. Yeah. It may be expensive, but you know, sometimes it's not whether you can afford to, it's whether you can afford not to.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those instances.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
Break time.
More to come, folks. We're going to take a quick break.
All right.
Scotty Baldwin.
Scotty Baldwin on snakes.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, Brothers of the Serpent podcast, joined with Scotty Baldwin. And yeah, I know you're trying to be humble in a way. I gotta say how awesome it is to see kind of behind the scenes stuff because it's given me. Seeing what you're doing and what you've been doing over there has given me this like huge respect for what goes on behind the scenes over there. That's really what I was trying to say. Like seeing these teams of people and the stages that you're dealing with and the light shows and all that stuff is like, oh my God, and the fact that you're there leading up to a show, like doing this massive prep that takes weeks or whatever, it's just really cool. And like, I'm not a a pop music fan, but you have to respect the expertise that goes into producing entertainment like that. It's just, and it's all live. There's no room for mistakes.
Right.
Like you, and one of the videos you sent me, there's like this one chord coming from his board, and he's like, if I cut that with a razor blade, show's over. It's completely done. It's like,
that fiber optic line carries 4,000 lines of audio.
And it's just, it's crazy to think about that. It's just like one cable.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think what keeps me there is the sense of wonder. Like I'm still that fan of live shows, in a sense that I haven't lost that sense of wonder about it all. I just have peered behind the curtain. I see behind the curtain, and I have a lot of fun telling people whom I love and care about. And I count you guys as those people that I can say, look, isn't this cool?
Yeah.
Isn't this cool? And I still
totally
have that
agree.
same sense of wonder. I don't take it for granted ever. I never take it for granted that how hard. What's really impressive is the underworld, like under the stage. There are all this scaffolding, and there are mazes where the dancers have to come down an elevator and then run back and change costumes. And Jolene, and the sort of mathematics that entails, it's almost like a choreography itself to get 16 dancers to run past each other to the other side of the stage and get, the 8 females and 8 males and get in different costumes and then make it in time to come up an elevator again. And to get Jolene changed, or JJ or Lehome or whomever the artist is, get them changed and set in a different position. It's a massive undertaking. And the people
wild.
who do it on the scale of Taylor Swift or Jolene or JJ Lynn, and it's just, it's that big and it's that impressive. I wish you could see how much work goes into the choreography of the backstage area.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
That's definitely the kind of stuff that's interesting to me. It's just like, the things that we do, like this is entertainment. It's art, it's entertainment, but it's at such a scale that's just, and with the amount of technology that's going into it now, like you were saying, with these 4K, 8K video and
People flying
screens
drones.
and elevator and drones and the laser, all the stuff that's going into it. And even the sound system, the arrays, like the speaker arrays that can they can focus, like the guy in the back is getting the same decibel level as the person.
That's correct.
Because they're all angled and then like Scotty will take you program the room, right? You get all the dimensions for the room and program it into the sound system so that it knows. Correct. It's wild how much technical.
Yeah. And all that, again, all that to say, all that work goes into it. And I still think about someone in the back or in the front just saying, oh, I like that show. That was great.
Yeah. That was a great show.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
And I think all those are everyone's experience, of course, because it's art, and the art is it's subjective, right? It's all subjective. And so is but what has to be objective is I have an objective when I mix. I want it to be the same as the night before. I don't want to be a variable in that. Musicians, even to a degree, if it's one artist, if it's Madonna or Jolene Tsai, it doesn't matter. That artist, you want them to be the variable. They are afforded the opportunity to be a little bit of a variable during the show. We have to, as band members, unless you're one of the principal band members of U2, right? If you're a backing band member for a solo artist, we want to give them the same thing every night so that it's always the same.
Yeah.
And I want the mix to be the same.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I have to rely on them to give a performance because I'm doing certain things to their voice, or I'm putting certain echoes or certain effects on their voice. So we all have to we're all in this like mini concert together. Like we're all in concert with each other as musicians and technicians, and then we're putting on a concert. So I'm still in awe of all of it. And so that's what's kept me, I don't know if it's childlike, maybe be a little bit too dramatic, but I am in wonder of it. And I like sharing it with people, and I'm good at relating to people who don't know anything about that. Like when you go to a baseball game, like I know a lot about baseball. I grew up in being a Twins fan here in Minnesota, and I learned a lot about baseball, the depth of how to manage a team, when to show pitchers, where you are, where you're playing when one runner is on first base with 2 out. Like I learned all those things as a kid because I played baseball. But it doesn't matter. If you go to the baseball game with a buddy, your buddy can just go, yeah, it's gorgeous out here. What a great stadium. Working on my tan. You want a hot dog? And they can just be enjoying that. And I can see that if there's a runner on the first base and there's less than 2 outs, before every pitch, either the second baseman or the shortstop goes like this with their glove. They lift their glove to their face. Before every pitch, they lift their glove. And they either give an open mouth, they either open their mouth wide, or they don't open their mouth at all. Why are they doing that? Because what they're doing is they know what pitch is coming. So they signal to the second baseman or the shortstop, signal to each other, on a stolen base, you're covering second base. Open mouth means you're covering, closed mouth means I am. And so I know those intricacies. I know all those things about baseball. You don't have to enjoy the game and have a great day out in the sun. So that's what I like, is that everyone at a concert is there for a different reason, or a sporting event or anything like that. And they can have a subjectively good or bad time. It's just that I'm trying to meet an objective. I'm trying to be there in, like Cody said, in technical support of an artistic endeavor. I love that saying. I may have come up with it myself by bashing some words together, but that's really what it is. It's trying to keep support of artistry. And within that support, again, there is an artistry itself. And I can show people, I am really good at showing people who don't know anything about sound, reading the room, and then being able to know how to talk about sound. So I can talk to a lot of people about sound and know what level I have to, down to what level I have to break it down and make it understandable. And that's fun for me too. And that's, as I get older, I'm in a kind of a professorial stage in my career where I can I can talk about sound and talk about enjoyment and do all these things, and even get paid to come out and talk to people at NAMM or things like that, where I can go out for a company like Yamaha and talk about it.
Well, what do you think? So let's shift over to a little more Snake Rosy topic then. Have you thought about the possibility that some of these ancient places, especially the megalithic stuff, the temples, maybe the boxes, even these the quote unquote caves in Barabar, those perfectly formed things in India, do you think that any of these may have been designed specifically for sound, for altering people's minds, like something like that? Do you get the sense of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, of course, it just seems natural that but people don't care what I think, nor do they need to. But I am everyone. I'm like the normal person that's out there with an opinion about it, and that's why I really respect people like Randall, like Graham, people who really lay their neck out. Yeah. Putting some of these theories out there, and they get bashed for it, but they are just trying to say, well, what if? I mean, you can't. I mean, Kyle, was it you when you went to the Great Pyramid and you're in there and you're thinking musically and you're like, oh my God, 118. Like you can hear the frequency, or you hum a certain thing. We've all done it in the shower, right? You're in the shower and you'll go, da, 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 and you go, oh, and you can make the whole shower like shake with that resonance. Yeah. And I think it stands against reason that those folks back then had it figured out, and somewhere along the way we kind of lost. That's not a new trope. That's, there are a lot of Chris, what's his name? Chris, his book is so great on Chris Dunn, man. Yeah. I think that would be right up his alley about and Ben knows a lot about sound is such a powerful thing that I would think that if you knew about that and knew how to harness it and control it, it makes sense to me that it could all be just one big, that whole pyramid could be, why wouldn't it be able to be a mechanical engine of some sort?
So
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you've been at plenty of shows, like you said, thousands. Have you seen, I'm sure you have, but you've seen probably people who were like greatly affected by it, like were driven to tears, were like, were like maybe changed by it. You've seen this probably.
Yes. And I there was everyone knows the Prince song Purple Rain. Even if you're a passive Prince fan or even aware of him, you probably know the song Purple Rain. Yeah. I was always, every night Prince would do that song, every single night, almost without fail, I would cry there'd be like a tear that would come out because I was kind of into it, and it was always the end of the show. And I remember so many times seeing that Yamaha, seeing my soundboard and seeing like tears drip on the console. Wow. But I also would look around and I would see people all crying with like their hands up, and not in a religious way, but they're just so moved. And why would it stop at moving people? Because clearly they're being moved emotionally by sound waves, right?
Yeah.
And the sound waves, it's my whole interesting theory about like, if you do songs in a different key, they don't have that same feel, right? And you guys must not like, oh, I don't have it tonight, guys. Let's go down a whole step. And it just changes the energy of the whole show. Journey, talk to Journey about that. Because Journey, they, as soon as Arnell joined the band, they did about 6 months. The replacement singer for Steve Perry, they did about 6 months of that, and he couldn't do it. He was suffering attrition. So they just lowered it to E flat, right? A half step, and the whole band did. And then they had to go down a whole step because he just couldn't sustain that. And then when you hear a song in a different key, you go, something's maybe not wrong, but something's different. And so why would that not stand? It wouldn't maybe move you the same way physically. And if it doesn't physically, then it doesn't emotionally. So it stands against reason to me that if you get the right frequency because it's all frequency, right? From a microwave to an AM radio to a thought, isn't it all like on one big long scale? I mean, I could be wrong about that, but if that's the case, then how could people probably knew how to I'm really interested in either levitation or stone shaping or the malleability of material. Yeah. And that possibly could take form. And we just don't have the brain for that. We go like, well, there's no way, because what's applicable to us are the things that we know as laws now. And I think that they might have been different at different points in history.
Oh, that's an interesting one. The laws were different at different points in history.
Could be.
Yeah, seems absolutely. I mean,
we know, there's symmetry through time, but we haven't been here for very long studying it.
Not entirely, right?
Not entirely.
Yeah, Feynman talked about it. Like the symmetry ends at the Big Bang.
At the Big Bang. Yeah.
So we know that it can change.
Yeah.
Because it had to change at least once. Yeah.
Definitely can change. Unless the Big Bang is fake.
It could be fake. It could be fake.
But yeah, sound, like you were talking about, there's all these waves on the spectrum. You get, when the frequency gets high enough, eventually it stops. It can't move through air anymore. And then you keep going up higher, and it becomes light at some point.
Yep.
Right. That vibration is high energy enough to be light. And then it's in the electromagnetic spectrum. So, but just with acoustic sound, with sound or ultrasonic vibration, so be above human hearing, you can start breaking apart molecules. If it's loud enough. Like now, like when in the human audible range, you can break things like this cup, with high frequencies that we can hear. If they're loud enough, you find the resonant frequency of this whole cup and it'll shatter it. So you think about a molecule, like if you scaled this down to the size of a molecule, you'd have to have an extremely high frequency sound wave to match that size. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It speaks, I think, to the hubris of mankind that we think that today we have more figured out than we have in the past. And that's the real rub, right? Is that maybe they knew things that I haven't stood in front. You've stood in front of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing to which I could liken it, even close, and it's not close, and it's a weird comparison, but it's the only time, because I've thought about the Great Pyramid and I thought about going there, and I thought how incredible it would be to sort of look at it, like not look at it, and then just sort of look up at it all at one time. Yeah. That's impossible to do at that scale and distance. But what I did that was in Dealey Plaza in Dallas. I went there on a day off early in my career, and I went to where JFK was killed. And I went down to the street where the X is, and from all accounts, it's a couple of feet off. But I went, basically, there were no cars coming. I kind of ran out at and stood on the X. And then I looked up over my right shoulder way back. And the first thing I went, no way.
Yeah. No.
Like, because I was there and I turned around and I went, no way.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't you have done it when he was coming right at you before he took that left? Why wouldn't you have but initially that gut reaction is really important. It's really critical. Like how you feel in that, they call it the blink moment, right? Like
yeah,
how you feel that I just looked up and I went, nope.
Yeah.
No. And good artists know how to reveal a song in a beautiful way that sort of unfolds and it kind of brings you in. And that's what I love about the $50 Dynasty record, is that when it came out, you gave me a preview of it and I brought it up to the Boundary Waters and I listened to it the whole trip. And it's an album that I have to listen to start to finish, because I believe it was conceived as a piece. And you may have switched around some elements of it, but it has a composition. Within it are several compositions, but it sits as its own composition. And I think we've lost touch with things that are longer, wider, bigger compositions. If you guys ever get a chance, we're talking about stuff in the, so-called natural world. Obviously the Great Pyramid is not, and the Sphinx and Shock, and we can talk about that forever. And those things are up for debate. But I've always wanted to go to Falling Water. Do you guys know what Falling Water is?
Mm-mm.
It's a house built by the greatest American architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. And Frank Lloyd Wright was this master architect. He was really the purveyor. He started the prairie style. He said, hey, we have this big country. Why build straight up? Why not build low with the land in a relation to the land, and don't build on top of a hill? You build on the brow of the hill. Otherwise you lose the hill. Like, he had all these theories, and he was very elegant, and he was very tumultuous life, and a lot of murders happened in his life to his family. And a lot of things happened, but through it all, he was a really great, true genius and great artist. And what people call his greatest piece of art, his greatest building, is called Falling Water. It's a building. It's a home. A house, I should say. A home is a state of mind, as a concept, right?
Yeah.
So you don't build a home, you build a house. Like a house is a noun, a home is a state of mind. So he built this house for Edgar Kaufman in Pennsylvania. It's an hour from Pittsburgh. You fly to Pittsburgh and spend the night, and then you drive there and you take a tour, and then I flew home. And I happened to be there, and I was nervous to see the house because I studied it. I knew how to go in it and how to look at the cantilever over the waterfall, and I knew what the floor plan was before I went there. But I was nervous to see this house more than I've ever been nervous to meet a person. And Wright, the part of the genius of Wright is that he intentionally slowed you down. You have to walk down this class 5, this gravel road, and then you can kind of see the house through trees. Then he makes you take a right, makes you go over this bridge, intentionally slowing you down. You get a look at it, you come around, you enter from the back. Good artists, good architects know how to lead you through their art in a way that's fascinating and really can control your experience the way they want it to be. And something tells me that the people that build some of these monolithic structures, even like Serpent, like, they are trying to say something, maybe not to future generations, and sometimes clearly they were, but it was intentional. The important thing that I always take away from all this stuff, because a lot of it is conjecture and it's just argument, but it's intentional. Everything seemed very intentional. You don't accidentally build this perfect thing with all these dimensions built in, one after another. And that's what I love about you guys, is you're willing to explore the possibility of all these different subjects, whether it's having Marty on, having Randall on, having guests on that talk about the potential for these things and the probabilities. And but you guys are both artists as well. So you understand the importance of art and how to work art into the experiential, work and experience into these structures, because it's all a big mystery. And it's something that really can't be, Bigfoot's one of my passions, because
That's great.
that video of the,
that's where you go to the Boundary Waters. You're looking for sasquatch up there.
Oh man, if I ever heard a wood knock up there, I would be. I don't know if I'd be terrified or happy.
We can't. Let's hold on.
Yeah,
I got to back you up,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
we
love
gotta
this. I love this concept of the artist, like, leading you through, like, we're not just going to show you the whole thing. We're going to lead you through this and make you experience it and control the experience in a certain way.
That's
When
right.
you're saying that's awesome, and thinking about the Great Pyramid in that way, it's like, first of all, it's got the most blatant album cover
Yeah.
ever, right? It's just this huge thing, and it's like, wow. So it draws you in from a long way away, from all over the world, obviously now. But then it's got these, I mean, it's still revealing itself after all this time, and it's taken, you know, so many different things to find this chamber and that chamber, and we're still finding more stuff. And it's like, so Graham talks about this in a way that, like, perhaps it is a time capsule in a way that, like, it was designed in such a way that it controlled our ability to even explore it based on our technological know-how. So yeah, I think that's really interesting to put it that way.
Yeah, it's like the Queen's Chamber shafts. You know, I mean, that whole thing. Like, there's clues because there's shafts in the King's Chamber, and they go all the way to the outside. So you get in the King's Chamber, once you finally get in there and you see these shafts, they're too small to explore, you know, personally. So maybe you jam some rods up in there or whatever, and nothing happens, and then you climb around the outside of the pyramid and you find the exits, right? And then eventually somebody asks the question, well, what about this other chamber? And then they find two shafts that were hidden in that chamber. Then you start climbing around the outside looking for those, and you don't find the exits. So then that makes you want to find out where they're going. And you can't get in there without technology or, you know, like drastic destructive action. You would have to dig through.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so massive that it's just, you're just like, no way.
Yeah,
are we gonna dig from the inside? And
Don't
follow
you think
this
that
entire
most?
shaft?
Don't you think that most people's perception of the Great Pyramid is that it's all stone? There's nothing in it. That's how I think people think about it. It's a big pyramid, and then you go, no. You can walk in there and walk up things, and like, how did they get all that in there? And just because we can't figure it out doesn't mean they didn't do it, because clearly they did it. So it's
well, and I know for me that the very first time I looked at a diagram, like a scale diagram, like, here's the pyramid itself, here's the size of it, and here's what's inside of it, I was like, that's it? That's all? It? They built this enormous triangle, and this is all that's in there? I mean, obviously, and then when you're in there, the Grand Gallery is massive, you know, and it's impressive, but it just seems crazy that that's all that's in there. And so, of course, like Kyle's saying, we're finding new stuff now. We've got, you know, muon scans. Like, so we're using particles that came from deep outer space. Like, the universe is scanning the pyramid for us.
So why do you think it's important that people do figure it out? Or do you think it's important? Obviously, it's important because we want to know.
Important. I mean, it's important that we do this for a lot of stuff. I mean, it's obviously, this one is particularly interesting because somebody created it. Like, somebody came up with the concept, or some group of people came up with the concept and then executed it and built it. But I mean, we do this with nature, right? We need to understand a tree. And so people have studied trees for a long time, trying to figure out how they work, you know, biology, physics, all of this stuff we're studying. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, it's just crazy that we're just here in this place and nobody knows how it actually works. Like, we're slowly figuring out little pieces, but it's kind of the same thing. You could take that Frank Lloyd Wright idea, and like the universe or the creator perhaps has done the same thing for all of us.
Yeah.
To the universe itself. It's like we get this amazing instrument where we're able to look out. We can see like so far out there, and then it just keeps looking the same.
Yeah, nature is fractal.
And then you reverse the instrument, and you're looking down smaller and smaller, and like, we can't get to the bottom, we can't get to the outside, we can't figure,
And no matter what level of zoom you look at it, it's just as complex as all the other ones, right? It's you can't get to a simple form of it.
And still you can sit outside and just look up and say,
Wow.
this is great.
Yeah.
What a great day.
Yeah, and we're designed
Yeah.
like our design is set to also have amazing experiences just with our senses without the instruments. But it, the curiosity, it just drives us to attempt to understand the way it works. I think it's great.
Well, I hope you go to Egypt with us sometime, Scott. One of the things I want to do, and when we were in Egypt, both times, and I'm sure all the times we're going to go, every time we go, we experience some new, interesting, and sort of mind-blowing audio feature. Something else comes up, and we're like, wow, what is happening? How is this, this part of this chamber or whatever, and if you stand right here and you make this noise, the whole place like starts giving you, it's almost like a DMT trip, right?
Yeah.
Well, we got to get into a big granite box, a beautiful granite box underneath Mastaba 17. You have to crawl, you have to Indiana Jones your way through a hole full of dirt, and crawl under this pyramid, like basically on your belly. And then you get through and there's this beautiful chamber, and in it is a box, and the box's lid is just barely slid off. So there's just enough of a crack where you can slip in there and lay down. And it is like a trippy, like actual mind-altering experience to sit in there and hum and have that box vibrate around you. It is, almost instantly it puts you in an altered state, right?
Yeah.
And even so, like even getting in that box and doing that, I'm still not convinced that's what they were for. I know some people think that was their purpose. Maybe it was. I still think that may be it's a side effect, right? Because we also have this story of climbing into some, and this is here, some water storage tanks that are made of concrete, beautiful round, and they were empty. We climbed into one, and then we got fascinated because you're standing in the middle of that thing, you start humming, and the whole place starts vibrating, and it blows your mind, right? And so that we know that water storage tank was not designed to cause mind-altering sounds.
I see.
But it does, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. What I was going to say is I would love to get you there, because especially as a front house guy. I thought of you when we found this out, but there's the basalt pavement in front of the Great Pyramid. There's a particular spot on that pavement. It's not very big, but it's like, it's multiple people can stand in it, but it isn't a huge spot. It's kind of a circular area on the basalt pavement where if you stand right there, suddenly the entire side of the pyramid that you're looking at begins to reflect all of the noise from the plateau behind you. You can hear conversations, guards talking to people, tourists having conversations, all coming off the pyramid and bouncing and hitting you in this spot right in front of it is wild.
And that's analog. That's like truly analog. Right?
The whole side of the pyramid is reflecting all of the plateau noise at that spot, and it's crazy to stand there and listen to it.
Yeah, we get that in nature sometimes, but how often is it that perfect where I know I was in New York. I had a friend once who took me into the subway area in New York where supposedly the story was spies would walk over and talk into a corner, and you could. And
whisper
I was
line.
in the whisper line, and it was crazy how well it worked. and that obviously that occurs in nature as well in different ways. I mean, I know on the boundary waters, if I'm on a lake, it could be a mile and a half long. I can hear two people in a canoe. I can hear their whole conversation from a mile away. Wow. I can hear it perfectly, like they're next to me, because the water is flat. It's like concrete. It's just shooting that thing across, but it doesn't. How often is it made where it seems like there was a purpose in mind, where it's particularly just to that locale, that exact spot.
Like, and we know that the Great Pyramid is like very slightly eight-sided. It has these tiny indentations on each big flat triangle, and so there's this spot where if you stand there, it's like a dish focusing the sound of the plateau at you.
How that would have sounded when it was like all white and perfect and new.
So that depends on if if this 8-sidedness was reflected in the casing stones, we don't know.
I
But
see.
if it was, I think the effect would have been even stronger. But I would love to have you stand there, and like listen to that with your ears. Having done front of
I'd
house.
like to experience that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like anything sort of analog like that. That's why I've been such a classical music fan in my whole life. Since I was a little kid, and no one in my immediate family when I was a kid was into classical music. I was, and I shared a stereo when I was a kid with my my sisters were in one bedroom and one was in another. And being the only boy, I had the stereo 3 months a year. So I would, I'd have my 3 months, and each kid had the two girls got it for a 6-month period, right?
Yeah.
Because they each, but my 3 months, I would take it in my room on that moving day, and I'd pull it into my room, and I'd always go to all the way to the left, and I'd find the classical music station, and I would listen. And I love going to classical music shows because there's no sound support. Typically, there's never support. There's nothing that I do. It's always where you sit in the venue. So if you go see a pianist, you want to sit about middle house to the left so you can kind of still see their hands. But there's a sweet spot, and the people in the classical world like that spot of which you speak. They figured out where that is in the room, and that's when you see a map of the seat prices. The most expensive seats are always to the left in the middle when it's a pianist, right? So they figured all that out. They're smart enough to figure that out. And I love spots like that because you know why? Because you really have to be there to experience it.
Yeah.
You can't see it on the screen. You can't watch
you
it on
can't
Hulu.
capture it with a
it's-
microphone.
Yeah.
The best description I can give to people is imagine like you right when you walk into that spot, it's like putting on a really good set of headphones that is just playing the sound of the whole
Environment
plateau.
sounds,
It
yeah.
just suddenly your sound horizon just expands like you've just put on headphones, and now you're hearing people talking, camels making noises, guides talking, vendors shouting. I mean, like it's like putting on headphones. It's just the whole sound just expands. It's amazing.
It sounds transformative to me.
It's
it sounds
amazing.
like it'd be transformative.
Yeah.
Scotty would just be like,
Yeah.
110 is a a little high.
Yeah,
Just
just could be like
pull that down a couple
yeah,
of dog
can-
biscuits.
It's
Yeah.
muddy. It's muddy.
All right, folks, we're going to take another break.
Yep. We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle and I here with Scotty Baldwin. One day we're going to get him in studio. Right now he's remote from distant land of Minnesota, the birthplace of Randall Carlson.
And who's the other guy? Scott? Was it his Randall? A guy that Randall
yes,
really respects.
Scott Walter.
Is it? Yeah, Walter.
Yeah, Scott Walter's from up there as well. Yeah. So you've been taking these trips. Tell us about these trips you've been taking through the boundary waters. Are you looking for geology, or are you just you trying to get lost and die? What's going on?
You know, I heard about the boundary waters when I was young. I had a friend before I got in the music business who used to take trips up there, and he would tell me about it. He said, "You got to go up there. You'd love it up there." And it sort of one in an ear and out the other. And I didn't pay much attention. I've always been vaguely aware in passing about the boundary waters. Well, what it is it's the BWCA is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, I guess you call it, is 1.1 million acres of virgin forest, the Superior National Forest in northern Minnesota. So if you most people, you kind of know the shape of Minnesota. It looks like a saltine cracker with like a bite out. So it's like a square with a bite out of it, right? It's actually a very cool shaped state. The whole northern, they call that the Arrowhead region. The whole part up there is the Arrowhead region. It's all forest. There's it's on its way up. You pass by and you go any farther than the border and you get into Thunder Bay. You get into Nipigon. So you get up there near Lake Nipigon, which Randall is maybe convinced that's it certainly looks like an impact site when you look what it did to the release of all the
Yeah.
delta that it formed outside of in Lake Superior, and that I followed that really closely and when it's been covered. And it's this really unique area. There's the twin sister of the Boundary Waters in Canada is called the Quetico, and Quetico is also over 1 million acres. So you got really 2 million acres of virgin forest, just lakes and rivers and streams. And when you go up there, you bring a canoe or you rent one. You bring your food, you put it all on your back, you paddle through lakes, and then you portage the way the old French voyagers did. You portage to the next lake and you follow analog maps. I mean, you have maps and your waterproof maps on you, and cell phones don't work. There's a not a ceiling, I guess it'd be a floor for how low planes can fly. So they can't go lower than a certain amount. It's protected. So you don't even really hear planes. Once in a while, I'll see a plane really far off, and it's usually like Newark to Nome or something. Like it's something to Alaska,
Yeah.
It's like it's way up there too. So you never hear planes. It's just gorgeous lakes and streams and rivers. It's like paradise for a Midwestern guy like me. I'm not an ocean guy, right? I stare and I look out in the ocean and I go, it's beautiful. And then I just want to leave. There's something about it. Maybe I have thalassophobia or something like
Yeah.
there's something big under there and stuff that can kill you.
Yes.
And the Boundary Waters, there are bear and there are wolves and there are moose and everything in between. But, if you don't want to get in a scrum with a moose, because people don't realize how big they are and how powerful they are.
Yeah,
And
they're
if you catch
huge.
one they're huge.
Yeah.
And I had one walk right through camp once when I was on a solo trip. I heard it. I knew what it was. I woke up. I clicked on my red headlight, and this moose and its calf were walking right next to my camp, 20 feet away in the water. And then they turned, they must have seen the red light, obviously, and they turned and went off into the woods. And it was not too often do I have my breath kind of really sucked out of my chest,
Yeah.
but I hyperventilated. I couldn't believe how extraordinary it was. And it's incredible up there. So you go on a trip and you'll tell the ranger, I'm going in, this is my entry point. I'll be out in 5 days. You carry a unit on where you can flick it open and hit an SOS button if you need to get rescued. But otherwise, you're in there. And it's fully an analog experience. It's just setting up camp, and I'm a hammock camper. I don't do tents. It's my back can't, I'm too old for that. So you find a couple of good trees and you hang a hammock and you build fires. And I've really replaced fishing. The first few years I would fish and try and catch fish. But you really have to catch, this may be minutia, a little inside baseball, but you really have to catch fish at the right time to eat them, right? So you go out, you have breakfast, then you go out fishing in the morning, and then you catch 3 walleye. And you come in and you go, God, I guess we just have to cook them now, right?
Yeah.
Because if you leave them on a stringer, the snapping turtles are going to come and get them. So I've sort of replaced fishing. I don't fish much anymore. I process wood. So I got a couple of really nice axes and good knives, and I go up there and I go out hunting for wood, and I bring it back to camp and I process it and stack it. And there's a couple of guys, I listen to a podcast as much as I listen to yours. I listen to the Tumble Home podcast, a couple of guys with whom I've become friends as well. They cover that whole area. They cover the Boundary Waters in their podcast. And it's a beautiful area, and it's federally protected in 1974, I think, earlier than that, but it's full protection, I think maybe under Carter in 74. So it's they're trying to mine up there now. That's not a good thing, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. That's not good. It's one of these virgin places that you just don't want to mess with. And It's really special.
What do you mean you
as
process
much as
wood?
He's making firewood.
Just making firewood?
Yeah. So I come back to camp and I'll just take wood and I have saws and axes and hatchets and I'll bring various things only when I need to, because you're fighting the weight thing too, right? You want to have, but in the winter, when I can't go up there, I'll dehydrate food. I'll make meals and dehydrate them over the winter. So I'll have full meals, chili, rice dishes, chicken dishes, everything's dehydrated. So when I go up in there, I'm not carrying much. You have to carry a barrel. You carry a barrel with the food in it, a blue barrel. So the bears, if you're unlucky enough to have a bear visit camp,
He just rolls
You
the
stack-
barrel around for a while.
Well, yeah, you ratchet it to a tree or something, and then you put some cast iron on it, and then it's only happened to be once where you, in the middle of the night, just hear cling, 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 and you go, oh, shit, and they're there, and you just get up and hurl insults at it,
Hopefully
black bear.
they don't decide to have a Scotty taco.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You're wrapped up.
You're already
in a
wrapped
hammock.
up in your hammock, your nice taco.
Oh man, I've called hammocks. I described it once, and I'm glad this friend of mine laughed as much as he did because I wouldn't have remembered. I said, "You're in this 360 degree orb of vulnerability.
Yeah,
Like you're from every angle. You're just
yeah.
mosquitoes and wolves. You're right at the right height. You're at bite height. So
Yeah.
but it's really a special place, and anyone who's ever thought about, I mean, people come from all over the world. I've met people like, oh, we're from Sweden, we're from Japan, we're from Norway, we're from, the UK, and they come over. It's a big deal. Like they'll do it, they say, we planned this trip for 5 years, and it's raining all 5 days, or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I have the luxury of having it be 4 hours away. I can drive up to Duluth, spend a night there with friends, or just do the whole 4.5 hours myself. And I like solo trips.
I was just going to ask, do you typically like move camps throughout the trip, or do you just go and find a camp spot and stay there for a few days and then come back? Like, how does
it'll depend how I'm feeling. On a solo trip, I like to move around a little bit. I don't go in for that long. Some people go in for 2 weeks. People do a month, and then you got to do a resupply, come back and leave and come back in on another permit. But no, it's fun to base camp as well. If you have a lot of people, it's fun to base camp because then you can go out in canoes, but you can't have groups. You can't have more than 9 people in 4 canoes. So I know I'm giving like a Boundary Waters breakdown here, but it's really, they keep groups to a minimum. People are really respectful. There's a lot of the leave no trace principle. I don't know if you guys know about that. So there's a lot of LNT. So I'm picking up micro litter, and I'm, when I'm on solo trips, that's what I like to do is go hunting for litter, and I pack it out, and then processing this wood. And the tumble home guys have come up with a phrase called wood gnoming. So you like to be the wood gnome. So you do all this, make all this wood, piles of wood, and then leave it there.
Leave it, yeah.
So when somebody comes to that campsite, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But there's also wood goblining. You can, as you're going past the campsite and you see wood, you can grab it and throw it in your canoe and take it to your campsite. So you got to play both sides, and hopefully that could be a question for everyone in their life. Are you more of a wood gnome or a wood goblin?
Are you a gnome or a goblin?
That's cool. Yeah.
It's really, and you guys, I want to get you up there sometime. And I know Randall, you asked Randall about it because clearly that guy's been up there. I'm sure he's gone up there and done some sort of canoe camping.
Yeah, he loves the canoeing for sure. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And it's, I got tired of renting. So I bought a tandem Kevlar canoe, weighs 40 pounds. I bought a 25-year-old perfect condition, another solo canoe. So, it's really, it's a hobby, it started as an interest. Interests are free. Hobbies cost money, right? So it started as an interest, and it turned into a hobby, and now I just love it. It's my place to escape all the craziness of the music industry, all the noise, I don't, other than your record, I haven't brought any music. I haven't played anything up there. I'll just listen to so your record is the only thing that I'd put on. And, it's really a special place, and it's probably where I'll have my girls, have me laid forever once I once I pass. I'll have them make a trip up there themselves, but I'm the only one in my family who likes it. Christina and the girls just don't connect. It's not it doesn't resonate with them. You talk about frequency, it's just not on there. They want to go to the spa.
You got to take them glamping, bro. You can't
glamping.
Yeah.
I can put them on Burnside Lodge where they have all the amenities and all the stuff, and I can go out in we've got that plan for next year. So, but I'll be in China March, April, May, and June of 2024. I really had a great offer from another artist to start March 9th and go through December. But I told that artist manager, I said, unless you're going to pay for a divorce attorney, there's no way that because that would do it. There's a work-life balance. And I know in the US, in the Western world, we're fighting for a 4-day work week. That's been a thing, like trying to find that balance a little more. And I'm all for that. I think efficiencies are now in people's lives where they can do a lot more in less time. So I'm all for that balance being a little more. I think 4 and 3, it actually sounds pretty good to me. I work where I'm off for months. Like I got back in late September and I'm off until I leave in March. But I want to go back out with Jolynn. She's her production has the highest production value, the biggest and best show, the most dancers, the best songs. The band is incredible. And I like being a part of her production. I feel at home. It's a very hard gig to do well, and it's rather easy for me to do. So that says something. So I'm at home with her. So I'll be out March, April, May, June in China. I'll get Christina and Louise and Vivian over there, which I think is important. Christina came to Guangzhou. Christina came on one trip with me to Guangzhou, and she, which is the old Canton. So when you hear Cantonese,
Christina's your wife?
My wife, Christina.
Okay,
and Christina, I said, hey, you got to come on a trip. I was commuting weekly to China for 2 years, which was devastating to me physically. Like it was really tough. Even though it's business class and everything's cushy, it's really tough. That I was always in perpetual jet lag for 2 years. It was crazy. And Christina came on one trip, and she had a couple days there to rent a bike and ride off. And she was Guangzhou is the old city of Canton. So she went in. There were so many things to do for her, and during the day while I was at sound check and such. And she went to museums, and then we went together to all these things. And it's just such an old. I'm sure you got that feeling when you were in Turkey or in Egypt. Like you go, oh, like everything is 3 times older than it is in the United States. It's like you go, oh, and it's perspective. And I want Louise and Vivian to experience that as well, to see a full culture shock where it's not just language, but it's the full culture. You're immersed in a different culture. I think it's important for people to travel and see that.
Did you ever get to the Yangshan Quarry?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I think that was the one that you recommended the first time.
Right? You got to go see this, bro.
Yeah, the only thing
listen,
the most impressive.
You have to do this. You need to pencil it in your schedule.
Yeah.
And now with staying in China instead of because Christina said, why are you doing this to yourself? Let's just go there and stay there for the 12 weeks or whatever I just got done doing. Just stay there for 3 months. And I know I only work every Saturday night. So I would travel Sunday to the next city, and then I would have the rest of Sunday off, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday fully off. And Thursday I might go in and do a virtual sound check.
Yeah.
Which is a recording of the band from the week prior, and then refine the system and make adjustments. And then Friday is the sound check with the artist. Saturday is the show, and then we repeat it all. But I had a lot of time this time to explore. So I more than go off and do deep dive things. I did a lot of city exploring. I walked a lot of streets. I ate a lot of food. I ate things I never thought I would eat. I ate things that I didn't know what I was eating. and it was probably better that I didn't, but I tried everything, and I'm not afraid of that. But no, the most impressive thing with Xi'an was seeing the terracotta warriors. That was unbelievably impactful to see that the dedication of somebody making thousands of these terracotta statues that are as big or bigger than humans. Yeah. It's just, and for what purpose, they're still trying to unravel all that the same way you would.
I've seen pictures where they're doing comparisons of just the ears, like the left ear or the right ear of all these different statues, and every single ear is different. And so that some people are now saying like these are actual people. Like each one is actually a portrait of a real person.
You're right.
Because
which is send the entire army in one by one.
Yeah,
and the guy.
And they're gonna make a statue of each guy. Because it's not like a cookie cutters, right? They all have different facial features, and
that's wild.
Yeah,
that's what got me so interested when you guys, when you do a Chris Dunn deep dive, like you can go on for just the symmetry and isn't that deal with the golden ratio as well? Am I incorrect in that? Or I mean that stuff's just. Just because we can't figure it out doesn't mean they didn't know what they were doing. And I think that's physical evidence of something where the thing is so big that you can't bop on over to the other side and do the other ear or the other.
Yeah.
You can't, it's just, and I'm okay with the mystery. I know we'd all like it solved. I told you guys before, Bigfoot, the best and worst day of my life would be if they actually do ever discover Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because part of it would be sad. I would probably actually be brought in private to tears. over the mystery being over. But it would be glorious to say, yeah,
Yeah.
what's more logical? Angels, which most people believe in, or a relic hominid that was a holdover from the,
Yeah.
however many thousands of years ago. You go, oh yeah, no, it's impossible. But you go, well, there are a lot of things impossible in any cursory glance at some of the stuff they did over in where you guys have visited.
Well, how woo are you willing to get on Bigfoot, Scotty?
I don't go woo with it, but I do think that it's I think it's when
you're a flesh and blood guy. You're a flesh and
He's
blood.
not
Bigfoot.
an interdimensional being.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I fall way short on every subject of the interdimensional. I do think it's possible to. I like some of the stuff Graham talks about, and there was a book called it's about DMT.
Supernatural.
I can't see the author's name, but it's but I think there's a lot to that, and there's a lot dealing with Christina's mom is in hospice now, and one of my wishes is that she could, go on that journey, like do something where it seems to people who are facing end of life issues, it seems to be a real tangible and settling thing to them. And I think as time progresses, the same way this country is looked at, like I'm not a pot smoker, I've never even tried pot in my life, but I like that people are relaxing. And the reason you're seeing this is the people who are making the laws now are old enough. They grew up as pot smokers. So they're now making the laws and rules. So that's how it's changing. It changes a little bit at a time. It's not unlike scale and variance. It scales up and down. So you start to see that the changes happening and people are saying, I'm okay at expanding myself a little bit. And I would love to see that. So I get a little woo, but I don't, I think Bigfoot actually could be, I think it's possible. And I think when you talk to people who all say that same saying, they go, I know what I saw. When they get to that point where they sort of fold their arms.
Yeah.
But you can't convince people who have seen what they describe as that being, that creature, that subject, I'll say. And when you say, really? And they say, yeah, I saw it and it was 25 feet from me and this happened. And I'm not going to tell anybody they didn't see it.
Right.
I think it's interesting how 99.9% of all the species that ever lived are dead.
Yeah. Yep.
And that they discover 25 new species a day. I think there's certainly a possibility, way more possible than angels or goblins or demons. I think it's possible. So I think but getting there is half the fun, and like the thought of it and the prospect of it, that, the thought that it could exist. And that's what makes Egypt and what's the Machu Picchu to me is just as fascinating as Egypt. When I look at that place and you think, and everybody attributes it, and I may be incorrect here, everybody attributes it to the Incas, right?
Yeah.
But they don't know that.
Yeah.
No one knows that, right?
That's
It
right.
could have been before that, the same way that people could have come upon the Sphinx and then, right? And then built these temples. And clearly that Sphinx was something else. Did they say it was a lion initially? Did they think it was a lion?
No.
Or was it something else?
No, this is an idea. But yeah,
Right.
the idea that it might have been a lion first, and now it's this kind of the head of a pharaoh or a person.
I think it's really metaphoric for humanity and mankind and the hubris that we have. You take something that you found and then you make it fit you.
Yeah.
What you claim it. It's like there's a lot there. It can go really deep, right? In a way that you guys have never got. Like, I'm claiming this and I'm going to make it in my image.
Yeah.
And now it's mine and I did it. And when really it's all a wonder. It's all a wonder, from sound and being in concert and me still being in wonder of the area in which I make my living and have for a long time, to the wonders of Egypt, Machu Picchu, the stars, the galaxies, all the stuff you can watch Instagram stories, or, you can flick those all day long and see stuff on Neil deGrasse Tyson, keep blowing your mind every flick of every story. So it's all out there and it's fun. It's fun to discover. I think discovery and curiosity, that's what I appreciate about you two very much, is that you've remained curious the entire time. You always are curious. And that's what I think works between your relationship as brothers. My favorite episode, by the way, is when you had your dad on.
Oh yeah.
The stash.
Pyramids are hard.
Is that what it was? It
Yeah.
wasn't like
Pyramids are
episode. Was it in the 50s or the 50s?
Yeah, I think we've had him on twice. Then we had the whole family on as well. So
The one where he talked about the size of the crane that you'd need.
yeah,
if you
that's
built it
pyramids
today.
are hard. Yeah.
That is just that. You just go, there's something else there.
Yeah.
Like your dad builds those things. He knows. Like
Yeah.
that just, there's something else and we haven't figured it out. And it's okay to wonder and it's okay to postulate these theories and it's okay to accept Graham and it's okay to accept Randall and these thoughts of what could be, because that's where all the fun is in the journey.
Well, you got 2 million acres up there. You need to go find Bigfoot, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there are very few reports of Bigfoot in Boundary Waters, but I secretly hope that I hear like, like some sort of.
Have you tried tree?
I'm here.
Have you tried tree knocking yourself?
I've never tried tree knocking. I think I'm too afraid of getting an
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
That's
You gotta
the
call
problem.
him.
You got to get out there and do your old Bigfoot call.
Oh, man. That's what everyone says. That people that see him, that the people that see the Bigfoot, they always say, "What I wasn't prepared for was the size."
The size,
Those are the
yeah.
people I believe because they get right to the point. They don't talk about anything else. They get right to their story, and then they say, "What I wasn't prepared. My mind didn't know how to place this thing.
Yeah.
It was 4 feet wide
Yeah.
and 8.5 feet tall." Like when you hear that, you just think your mind does things when you don't know what something is. It kind of takes it like, I haven't seen this before. I need to. There's no gravity, right?
Yeah.
Just where to place that. So I think the mystery is fascinating, but I've never had that about ghosts. Never had that about ghosts.
Have you had any?
Never had-
So when you're up there by yourself for a long time, have you like what's the weirdest thing that's happened? I know you told us the moose story, but have you had anything where you're like, what the hell? Or you get lost or your compass is spinning, like anything like that? Have you had any strange experiences?
No, I think that, well, there are so many, I wouldn't know where to begin. Some of it was like seeing the first time I saw the star, what is it called? Starlink.
Oh yeah,
All this-
Starlink. Yeah.
That I was almost in tears because I went, wait, what's going, I couldn't, again, I didn't know how to place a line of,
Yeah.
and that's scary in a way
Yeah.
because it's something, but the scariest moments for me are, I think I do suffer a little thalassophobia. I have some sort of fear of what's in the water.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like the ocean. But when I'm paddling and I look down and I see a piece of granite that's as large as a house
Yeah.
and I go right over top of it,
Yep.
it's there's something scary about that. Like
Yep.
I'd rather see a Bigfoot or I'd rather be chased by a moose in rut,
Yeah.
right? Than see a giant rock in the middle. A buddy of mine, we're in the middle of Lake Saginaga, which is on the Canadian border. We did a route a year or two ago where we did the Granite River route. So the whole time we were paddling, Canada was on the right and the US is on the left. And we went all this, 20-mile route up the Granite River. And it's really fun. We took the wrong portage at one point. We took the Canadian portage and it was unkept and just completely a mess. It was horrible fun. It was great. And a lot of waterfalls and whatever. We turned the corner and got out on Saginaga Lake. And there were 2.5 foot rolling white capping rollers.
Oh.
And we had to go straight into them. And I
Waves.
remember waves. And I remember I was in the front. Austin's better in the back of the boat. And I was canoeing and every other paddle was air. And every time the canoe landed, it breached and I just kept and the boat kept filling up. And there was sort of like, I might die. Like I might die out here or my lifeless corpse will be bobbing up and down in this really expensive life jacket for hours. But because when you flip out there, I mean, in those kind of waves, you have to like get to shore. You can't, a self-rescue is really impossible. It's so we just keep going and we just kept going. And we happened to get to a site where we got to an island and there was a site open. And it turned out to be the most beautiful site full of red and white pines and cedar trees and a beautiful, it was like the best, we looked across and there was Canada and we were on this border lake and on the boundary the U.S. and Canada border, and it's just sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth even the cheating death a little bit is worth it. It's a lot. It's not like jumping out of planes, but it's really the payoff is every moment, every footstep, every paddle. It's worth it. So it's my happy place. Clearly, it's where I like to go.
You just gave me a lot of info for pranking the shit out of you if we ever go up there.
Oh my God. I am such an easy person to prank too.
Just like looking down in the water. It's Scotty. Yeah.
I'll bring
my regret.
I'll bring my
inviting
Sasquatch suit.
I'm going to steer the boat. I'm going to steer us over every giant granite boulder in the water.
Yeah. I would never prank you on Sasquatch, but the boulder in the water is a great idea.
I always wish I could see, I tell people if you could look at my cell phone bill for my adult life, there's already one really big peak, right? Where it's going along and then it just peaks super high the day Prince died. I bet I got 200 phone calls the day Prince died.
Wow.
Everyone went, hey, so sorry, man. And I was working with him.
Yeah.
Just weeks before he passed, I had been up with him. And so that's one spike. The other spike is if they ever find a Bigfoot. Like that'll I will get probably 200 calls. Hey man, do you have on CNN? Like, no, what? I don't watch the news. You better turn it on. They got your boy. And again, happiest and saddest day of my life if that happens. So I'm okay with not knowing, I guess.
Well, if you come down here, Scotty, we'll have to take you to the what is that? There's
big thicket.
No, there's a strange museum in Austin that claims to have a frozen Bigfoot, like on ice.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm there.
We got to go. Like, there's a whole crazy story behind this whole thing, and this guy that owns this place purchased the original block of ice with this body in it, and you can go see it.
Isn't that the Minnesota Iceman?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got
Randall's going to know all about that. Like Randall will know. Oh, the Minnesota Iceman. I don't know. I just made him sound like Jesse Ventura. Actually, Randall has more of a. I have the middle. He's a hard guy to imitate. He's somewhere between Fozzie and Jesse Ventura. Kermit and Jesse Ventura.
You mean the Minnesota Iceman?
The O. You always have to pronounce the O. And Havoc. Yeah. That's the one I'll never forget. Havoc.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure Randall knows all about the Minnesota Iceman. And there was somebody found a woman. I think did they call her the Minnesota woman? She might have been just called the Minnesota woman. I think she's 9,000 years old. I could be wrong on this, but
that sounds familiar.
Anyway, she was found. I think she was a teenager or something. They found her, and I used to go to a coffee shop at near where I lived in St. Paul, and it's right next to a university called Hamline University, a college. And I started dating one of the women who was working at this coffee shop, and she was an anthropology major. And I said, well, what's interesting to you over there? Like, what are you working on? She said, well, actually, I'm cataloging the Minnesota one. I went, wait, I know what the Minnesota woman. She's like, yeah, she's at Hamline University. Yeah, come on, you got to take me. So that night we went over to the college, just like in the movie, like the keys, we go in the room, and she takes out this skull, and she is holding it. And she said, yeah, you can hold it. And I went, oh my God. And so I'm holding this skull. And I said, this is incredible. Like, I'm holding the skull of the Minnesota. And she said, no, that's not the real one. The real one's right in that drawer.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't want to hold this one. I want to hold the real one. And she's like, I don't know. I get in trouble. Come on. So we opened the drawer, and this, I don't even know this woman anymore, so it's okay. I picked up this skull. This is like sacrilege, right?
Yeah.
I picked up the skull of the Minnesota woman, and my first impulse was like, I just kissed her, like the teeth. Like I went, mwah. I said, this woman who lived 9,000 years ago had no idea she was going to get kissed by this guy.
You just
and
molested her 9,000 years later.
Oh yeah, that's right. Teenager. I think that gets me in trouble. That's awful. That's gross. You guys are gross.
That's
And
awesome.
then she was
actually.
like,
Yeah, that's
"Give
actually
me that
really
head.
cool. Yeah.
Give me that head." And she puts the head back down, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm holding the thing. I was wondering why she gave it to me so like, here you go. Like, wow. And it was a fake. Like they make
They made a model of it. Yeah.
made a model. So no, I kissed the real Minnesota woman skull before they took it out of Hamlin. Maybe that's why they took it away from Hamlin University.
They're like, what
You
is this
got
biological
skull
trace
kissed.
on the teeth? What is this?
We traced her DNA to 25 years ago. Oh, to be young again, young and dumb.
That's great. You know, I would say that's honorable.
Yeah.
It was just a peck.
Yeah.
It was a peck, just a peck.
Beautiful. I love it.
All right.
right.
Well,
Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the listeners too, because if you tune in, you go, once in a while I hear the listeners say, "Hey man, I just caught up. I just listened to all. I'm up to episode 300 or whatever." Like in the listener, and I always go, "Oh, they had to deal with my 110." Like episode 110. Like they probably went, "Who is this guy? What is this guy?" Hopefully, I was a little more fun this time, but
you were fun the first time too.
I really love the show. It's I'm sorry the Watcher wasn't here. This it's I really like what you guys are doing. You're curious and you explore and you have a great familial relationship with one another and each other's families. I think that's really it's really something that I cherish, and that's why I prize our friendship as well.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you so
buddy.
much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
I need one more story before we let you go.
Oh yeah.
You got to tell the story of the ShinYang serpent.
Yes.
Yes. So obviously we all love your bumper music. We love the intro, the outro, and I've been hooked on, is it Sona? No, what's the name of ding ding?
Oh yes, Solus.
Dun, 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 and that always gets me. And sometimes when they say we're going to go to a break, I always go, it's going to be on this time, right? And then it is. I'm like, yeah, I called that one, right? So that, of course, is my favorite song on the record, for various reasons. But the ShinYang Serpent. So I was in China in 2019 or so, and I was in ShinYang, and I asked the band at a sound check. Lee Helm wasn't there he didn't come to Friday sound checks the way Joe Lynn does. And he flew in Saturdays for the show. And so Friday we'd horse around and they'd sound check 4 or 5 songs, and then we'd all go out, have dinner and have beers and whatever. And I said, "Hey, I got these buddies of mine who have a podcast, and you guys seem like you could just like knock this song out quickly. Can I send it to all of you?" And Mike, they're so good over there. Those 4 guys are all Berkeley grads, right? So they're like, "Well, just play it on your microphone." So I held my phone up and played a show, the end of the thing, and they listened to it. And Mike went, after about a minute, Mike went, "Yeah, got it. No problem." And I went, "Oh no, they're going to screw it up, somehow." And then Jack starts and they start, ding, 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 right? I'm probably in the wrong key. That's embarrassing. I don't have perfect pitch stuff. And so it starts and they're playing it. I'm going, these guys are nailing it. Like they've never played the song. And then Mike the whole time, Michael the whole time was talking to, "Okay, B flat." Like he's yelling it out. "Okay. Oh, B section. Okay, back to A section." And he's yelling it out, and they cut it. And I multi-track recorded it thinking I would send it to Kyle and he would mix it. And then, but my front of house mix of it was so clean and good that it sounded like a studio version anyway, and that was my mix. I sent it to you. That's right. And so, and I was like, "Hey, I think this is good enough." I chopped it up a little bit and sent it to you. And I always like when that's the outro song.
Dude.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I thought, were we at
So Daniel and I had this is DK Funk. We're talking about the outro music.
Yeah, DK.
Oh
Funk.
yeah. DK
We had
Funk,
just
right.
finished. We had just made that like not too long before, and Russ sends. We're on our way to a show. We're playing.
Yeah.
We're gonna play at Riverfest. This little festival in our small town, and me and Daniel are driving there. Russ sends me the song. It says, "Hey," because it was the night before we were having band practice, And Russ is like, hey, Scotty wants to know if it's okay if he has like
Oh,
these
yeah, that's
guys
right.
play
Yeah.
this song. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
him and Daniel were like, well, hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. The next day, like that morning, Russ sends us this song, and I'm like, what? We start listening to it. Me and Daniel listen to it in the truck, and we're just like, it's like he did this in one night. Like we couldn't figure it out. I didn't even know it was live.
Yeah.
So yeah, we figured out later. It's like, this is live. First time they ever played it.
Yeah.
Single
stadium.
take.
Yeah.
You
Far
are one
better
of
than
the
we could
few-
ever possibly
You're
do.
one of the few. You're one of the few artists that are actually American artists played in China. By the way.
Yeah.
And I I think I sent you a video, Kyle, of me playing soloist on the PA on this last tour. I played it out on a Friday at sound check, just so I'd play an American song.
Did I miss that? I'm gonna have to go scroll back and find that.
Yeah.
I gotta see that.
Yeah, it's fun. That was fun to do, and it all happens really fast.
Well, we are so honored, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you
Eternally
very
Yeah,
much.
it's my pleasure. I really
very
enjoy
honored.
it.
Thanks for coming on the show, and hopefully you're coming down here to El Tejas, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Good night, man.
Good night, buddy. Oh, by the way, turn it up, Scotty.
Yes. Great. Let it play.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, the final segment of this, the very fine episode of Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Very fine indeed.
Very fine.
And we got some news stories, got some updates, and
Great to
Yeah,
have
that-
Scotty on.
that is ShinYang Serpent,
Yeah.
folks. And then you'll hear the DK Funk at the end that they just owned us on that song.
One take.
One take.
First try after listening to it for 1 minute.
It's genius.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, this will be a short segment. So let's start with Space Weather News. Spaceweather.com. What are mysterious bright nights? A phenomenon rarely seen in centuries might have just appeared in the night sky over Colorado. A bright night. Philosophers and scientists have reported bright nights for literally thousands of years. It is when an otherwise dark and moonless night fills with a soft glow, allowing observers to see distant mountains or read a newspaper. Pliny the Elder, an army commander in ancient Rome, described the phenomenon as a nocturnal sun around 113 BC. In the modern world, bright nights are seldom seen. Most of our planet's human population lives in cities, and even rural landscapes are somewhat lit by distant urban bulbs. The nocturnal sun has been overwhelmed. Or has it? Enter Aaron Watson, an experienced night sky photographer who regularly visits the darkest of dark sky sites in remote parts of Colorado. On multiple occasions this year, he has photographed red auroras and green air glow visible from any ordinary countryside. Last month, he was at one of his favorite inky dark sites when he may have experienced a modern bright night. I go outside on most clear nights to observe, says Watson. But the night of October 9th was noticeably different. Although there was no moon or any other source of light, the landscape was softly illuminated. Nearby juniper trees made dark silhouettes against the glowing night sky. I could easily see my telescope and equipment. My partner was with me, and I could see her face quite well. I remarked, "Wow, it's so bright out," and she agreed. A bright night sounds exactly like what I experienced, says Watson. As the landscape grew in brightness, Watson decided to photograph the sky. When he pointed his lens towards the stars, the view screen of his camera filled with green light. It was a very strong green air glow, perhaps the brightest I have ever seen, he said. A 20-second exposure produced the photo shown above. Look at that.
Wow, that is cool.
The camera going. I'll show the camera. Bright nights have been a mystery since at least the 1st century. Watson's photo could be a clue. It seems to confirm a hypothesis published in 2017 by Gordon Shepherd, then a professor at Canada's York University, who believed that bright nights were caused by intense displays of airglow. Shepherd came to this conclusion using a satellite sensor he built himself, the Wind Imaging Interferometer, which orbited Earth for 14 years on board NASA's Upper Atmosphere Research Satellite. When he and co-author Youngmin Cho examined the Wind Imaging Interferometer's archive, they found a number of apparent bright nights in the sensor's airglow data. Airglow is just what it sounds like, a diffuse glow that fills the air. It is produced by photochemistry in Earth's upper atmosphere, with its green color coming from atomic oxygen. Frequently photographed by astronauts on the ISS, airglow can be detected by sensitive cameras on almost any dark night from all locations on Earth. Rarely, however, is it visible without a camera. In their paper, Shepherd and Cho highlighted 11 events where WIND2 detected airglow bright enough to see with the human eye. All were correlated with giant waves of high-altitude air called zonal waves. Zonal waves are linked to Earth's jet stream and play a crucial role in weather and climate. During the events Shepherd and Cho studied, zonal waves piled up, constructively interfering to create high-pressure regions hundreds of thousands of miles wide. By forcing atomic oxygen into a higher concentration, the zonal waves create an intense, bright night glow. The amorphous glow in Watson's photo is just what one would expect of broad zonal wave activity. The airglow was strong in all directions, recalls Watson. It had a flat color density without ripples or other fine structures, just as one would expect from Shepherd and Cho's hypothesis. Bright nights might not be a thing of the past after all.
Wow, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
Me either. That's a really cool story. Current conditions, solar wind speed is 429.7 kilometers per second. Density is 3.24 protons per cubic centimeter. Sunspot number is 85. Seems like it's been going down. And the neutron count today is minus 5.0% of the space age average. KP index is 2.33, which is quiet. 24-hour max was 3.00, which is also quiet. And that is your space weather news for the week.
All right.
What do you got?
Giant blobs are the moon. That's what I have. You guys remember the giant blobs?
Giant blobs.
This is from phys.org. Huge blobs inside Earth are from another planet, study suggests. Scientists proposed a novel idea on Wednesday that could solve two of the world's mysteries at once. One that passes over our heads every night and one that sits far below our feet. The first mystery has puzzled everyone from scientists to inquisitive children for millennia. Where did the moon come from? The leading theory is that the moon was created 4.5 billion years ago when a would-be planet the size of Mars smashed into the still-forming Earth. This epic collision between early Earth and the protoplanet called Theia shot an enormous amount of debris into orbit, which formed what would become the moon. Or so the theory goes. Despite decades of effort, scientists have not been able to find any evidence of Theia's existence. New U.S.-led research published in the journal Nature suggests they might have been looking in the wrong direction. Around 2,900 kilometers, or 1,800 miles below Earth's surface, two massive blobs have baffled geologists since seismic waves revealed their existence in the 1980s. These continent-sized clumps of material straddle the bottom of Earth's rocky mantle near its molten core, one below Africa and the other underneath the Pacific Ocean. Scientists have determined that the blobs are much hotter and more dense than the surrounding rock, but much else about them remains a mystery. The new research on Wednesday indicates the blobs are buried relics of Theia that entered into Earth during their formative collision and have been hiding near our planet's heart ever since. As well as creating the moon, this collision and the remnants it left behind may have helped Earth become the unique life-hosting planet it is today, the researchers proposed. Not sure how to pronounce this person's name, who is a geodynamics researcher at the California Institute of Technology and the study's lead author. I think it's Qian, something like that. Yuan. They said it is very, very strange that no evidence of Thea's impact has been found. It was during a class held by a planetary scientist discussing this mystery that Yuan first connected the dots. Where is the impactor? My answer is, it's in the Earth, he said. The planetary scientist holding the class had never heard of the blobs. The research has since required experts in the often separate fields of space and geology to join forces. Yuan said that when Thea smashed into proto-Earth, it was traveling at more than 10 kilometers, or 6 miles, a second. Oof. A speed that allowed some of it to penetrate very deep into Earth's lower mantle. A video developed by the team simulating this process illustrates how clumps of Thea's mantle, tens of kilometers wide, swirled inside Earth. As the mostly molten Thea material cooled and solidified, its high level of iron caused it to sink down to the border of Earth's mantle and core, the scientists proposed. Over the years, it accumulated into 2 separate blobs, officially called Large Low-Velocity Provinces, LLVPs, as you listeners may remember, that are now each larger than the moon. Testing a theory based so far back in time and so deep under Earth is incredibly difficult, and Yuan emphasized that their modeling could not be 100% certain. But if true, the implications could be immense. Earth remains the only planet in the universe known to be capable of supporting life. The Thea collision, which is believed to be Earth's last major accretion event, significantly changed its composition in just 24 hours. My feeling is that this initial condition is why Earth is unique, why it's different to other rocky planets, Yuan said. Previous research has suggested that Thea could have brought water, the key ingredient of life, to Earth. The blobs have been observed sending up mantle plumes, columns of magma towards the Earth's surface, and have been linked to the evolution of supercontinents. Thea left something in the Earth, and that played a role in Earth's subsequent 4.5 billion years of evolution. Christian Schroeder, an expert in both Earth science and planetary exploration at Scotland's University of Stirling, told AFP, the theory fits several strands of evidence. It is a very significant and exciting finding. He emphasized that the mystery of the moon's formation had not been solved, but the research gives more weight to the Thea impact theory and provides a credible explanation for these anomalies at the core mantle boundary at the same time. The remnants of Thea potentially preserved underneath us may be responsible for important processes on Earth ongoing to this day. Blobs are moon.
Didn't we also have a story we went through a while back where they were trying to, I know this is about models, but they had run this simulation over and over and over again of how could the moon have formed after a big impact or whatever, and it wouldn't coalesce. Right? The material would be splashed off of Earth, and it would never become like a body. It would scatter.
I thought I remember seeing a story like this where they had run the model, and the way it worked was that it smashed in, and it threw this piece off that was in and actually kind of like a droplet
big
went
droplet.
out, and then it came back and impacted again, and that threw another piece off, and that was how or maybe it was an impact. It was something where it was 2 impacts. It was like the impact with Earth, and it threw off like maybe 2 big pieces, and then they impacted each other.
Yeah.
It was something like that, and they're like, it could have been like this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, so maybe that's more what they were doing. But I thought the upshot is like this is not a simple, like it's a weird mechanism to start with a huge impact, something giant exploding into the Earth, and then that results in this big droplet out there that solidifies into something else.
Yeah.
Because the natural tendency of it would be stuff would scatter all over the
Right.
place.
You'd either have escape velocity.
But you're right. I do remember seeing an image of a droplet getting slung out, and then it achieves this perfect velocity, and then the droplet breaks away and leaves this drip.
Yeah,
out
something
there.
like that.
They were like, it had to be very specific to like leave the moon in this orbit
yeah,
where it wouldn't fall back in or escape or whatever. Yeah,
it was something like that.
yeah. I don't know, man. I think the old Tiamat and Nibiru story still wins.
I agree. It's such a good story.
It still wins. Kingu. That moon is Kingu.
Kingu. That's right.
All right. Anything else, or we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, it was a great
That's
show.
about all I got.
Next week, I think we're gonna have Ben on. That's the plan for now. Ben's
He
been
just got back from Egypt.
back from Egypt, but if you guys have been following his channel, which if you haven't, you should be. The stuff going on with the vases right now is fantastic. And we're gonna have him on about that and some other interesting stuff that he saw in Egypt that hopefully we're gonna get to go see when we go in February. And I don't know of any producers
I didn't even
on
look.
my end. Kyle's checking right now. But we do want to thank all of you who are in the Patreon or through the PayPal who have supported the show. Those of you who have sent us one-up boxes, all the support, the comments, everyone in the Discord. Thank you guys so much. Just having this community around the show it's amazing.
Hey, we got a note. Let's see. See if I can read the whole note. PayPal donation. $20 from Sedley. Says, Dear Kyle and Russ, Laura and the Watcher and extended snake family. Love your show. It is the mother of all podcasts. Snakes are snake. ... Thank you, PayPal, for not giving me the entire note.
Oh, no. It doesn't give you the whole thing, huh?
Why? Thank you very much, Sedley.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me keep going here. I think.
Yeah, if you
that's-
donate through PayPal and you leave a note, Kyle will read it on the show. And we have been publishing Patreon episodes more often. And one thing I may be doing, I did this with the last episode, and I may start doing it from now on when we can, so two things are happening. One is our schedule for recording and publishing has gotten, for a while there, we were pretty good about publishing every Thursday. But now, like, when we can record has been changing a lot just due to circumstances in life and everything. So we can't always publish on Thursday. And the other thing that's happening is Troy, our buddy Troy from the Discord, has been making us fantastic episode art. So what usually happens now is we get the episode recorded, and then I either tell Troy what we talked about and we come up with some ideas, or I send him the show and he listens to it and comes up with ideas. And then it takes him a while because he also has a life and a job and everything. So at this point, usually I'm publishing at least the audio version of the show probably Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
That's what's happening now. And then I usually will end up getting the YouTube episode out late Sunday night or maybe Monday, Tuesday. Because I can't even start making the episode until I get the art. So what I have just tried, and I did this with the last episode, was I published early access to the audio of the last show on the Patreon. And then we did a Patreon segment for that one, so I just published that right afterwards. So now, if you are still wanting to get your show during the week, you could, if you sign up to Patreon, I'll be publishing these early access. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. But people were just like, yeah, do this more. So I will. It's no problem. I can publish it on the Patreon while
They
and then
like
while-
it. Keep
Yeah, and
doing
then
it.
While Troy's working on the art, it'll be on the Patreon, and then once I get the art, I get the show out. So yeah,
Good
thanks.
deal. Don't go in the Discord and spoil the show for everybody else. Just if you want to talk about
No.
it.
There's a secret Patreon channel.
That's what I'm saying.
in the Discord.
You gotta keep it to that.
Yeah, they have been doing that.
Okay. All right.
Only
Very
one guy.
respectable.
Only one guy was like, "Sweet new show." People are like, "What?"
Oh, you can rub it in their face. But, I'm just kidding. That's totally acceptable.
Okay, yeah.
Just
Maybe that's
don't give any spoilers. I'm just kidding.
All right.
Just messing with y'all. We love you.
Always have.
Yeah, always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work, and thank you to Scotty for coming on.
Yeah.